We are the Thunderbolts!
Can't call ourselves that.
God, thank you.
So that's what the asterisk is for. Thunderbolts is a worthy outing for some of the MCU's unsung heroes, but just like the film's sort of not really antagonist, the Sentry, it has both a dark half and a light half. One of them is actually pretty great. I'm Clint Gage, and this is my review of Thunderbolts. I'll admit I had a lot of hope for Thunderbolts going into it. Something's been in the air this last year, from the Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four of it all, to the sense that we're through Phase 4's strange aimlessness and Phase 5 is working towards something, and it's all got me more intrigued. There's been a sense lately, something that Anthony Mackie has even said out loud, that Marvel is set to recapture some of its magic. Thunderbolts, for the most part, is moving in the right direction, with a solid and fairly unexpected ride for its band of anti-heroes. But early in the movie, there's a lot of exposition, and for a not insignificant amount of runtime, the movie belongs to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, with Bucky Barnes kind of hanging on the periphery of her plotting in his new role as a politician. Now, more than anything, this early section of the movie had me wondering at what point it was decided to make the Winter Soldier a congressman, and if it was just kind of because one of the titular Thunderbolts should be around for all this early shoe leather. Once it gets properly moving, though, one of the things I like most about Thunderbolts is actually one of the things I like most about Infinity War and Endgame. Combinations of characters who've never met, but make for an interesting dynamic. Think of a whole movie built around moments like War Machine and Nebula bonding over the fact that they've both been put back together with mechanical appendages. The moments between Red Guardian and Bucky are very charming as they just kind of idly chat about super soldier serums, and Yelena and Ghost kind of gang up on Agent Walker to make fun of his hat, which is to say his beat-up, valor-stealing Captain America helmet. And not only is it really funny, it's used at the right spot in the film to the exact right effect. Now, Marvel is kind of a factory at this point. Stories are almost always leading to the next thing more than they are concerned with what they're currently doing. The action kind of is what it is and only really evolves around the fringes, so there's rarely something new to look at in that department. An MCU movie really gets a chance to stand out if it can bolster its more sort of workmanlike components with this kind of endearing material, and the parts of Thunderbolt's lighter half that work do just that. But it's an established relationship in Thunderbolts that shines the brightest. Florence Pugh and David Harbour were a blast as Yelena Belova and Red Guardian in 2021's Black Widow, and they're just as much fun here. The pair's father-daughter dynamic ranges from a real emotional need to embarrassing me in front of my friends. They're so clearly and so sweetly dependent on each other, it's difficult not to love them. And it doesn't hurt that Harbour is just chewing every piece of scenery he can get his metal teeth and Russian accent on.
Oh, America's so big. You ever drive through Oklahoma? It's so flat.
But for all these quality interactions between 2 or 3 Thunderbolts at a time, the team never quite gels as a whole. Director Jake Schreier and screenwriters Eric Pearson and Joanna Kahlo are aiming for a non-stop, snappy back and forth in the Guardians of the Galaxy mold, but their main characters don't live in that energy for nearly as long as they're meant to, or more importantly, as long as they need to. Because while Yelena and pals are cracking wise, Thunderbolts' gloomier half is lurking just out of sight and ready to effectively bum you out. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Lewis Pullman's Bob and his journey to become the Sentry is a story about mental health and extreme loneliness. There are days when Bob feels very bit the invincible Sentry, and days when he can't help but let the Void take over and wreak havoc. He's the exact right opposition for a character like Yelena, who's constantly questioning the things that she's done and how she should feel about herself. As Bob forces the members of the Thunderbolts to face the darkest times in their lives, the movie makes its most potent statements about how broken these people really are. There's actually a moment towards the end that had me scribbling in my little notebook in the dark in the theater. I wrote, "That's pretty up." Normally, half the time, I can't even read my own writing at the end of these screenings, but that one I do remember. But this, again, is where Thunderbolts is really at its best. It's where the craft of the filmmaking team is on full display as well. Schreier has a bunch of darkly funny stuff on his resume, some of which even leans darker than funny. But my favorite member of the behind-the-scenes team is cinematographer Andrew Draws Palermo. He shot both The Green Knight and A Ghost Story, 2 movies from David Lowery with very specific visuals speaking to a character's weaknesses and fears. Just look at how he shoots the one-against-many hallway fight in the film's opening sequence. This is one of the most basic staples of superhero fight choreography, right? We see it all the time, but this time we see it from overhead with stark black and white shadows stretched all the way across the frame. Even bearing in mind that, again, Marvel films can only sort of modulate their style of action and never completely reinvent it, this is some gorgeous imagery, and it speaks to the isolation Yelena is dealing with throughout the film. This is all to say that Thunderbolts truly excels with its darker, more upsetting subject matter and themes. And because these lows work so well, the highs that don't quite have the energy they're aiming for seem that much less high by comparison. And for me, it made the movie overall feel like kind of a bummer. A compelling and moving bummer at times, but I wasn't really feeling up for a silly round of petty bickering by the time the home stretch rolled around. There is one exception to that, which has to do with a chicken on meth that shows up in the third act. It was legit pretty funny. But think about the Guardians of the Galaxy and the way that it opens on a kid watching his mom die of cancer, and then nearly immediately follows it up with dancing and lip syncing through the title sequence, then forgetting he had a girl sleeping in the ship.
Look, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I forgot you're here.
It's that sort of low moment to high moment that this movie is aiming for that it just didn't quite nail. Now, I do think there is some unfair pressure on this movie that I could be just as guilty of as anything else, but at this point, there is so much working against a Marvel movie. Phase 5 is wrapping up. We know that Fantastic Four and Doomsday and Secret Wars, they're all on their way, and that's something that's in the air around the excitement for the MCU means that we just want all these big titles to get here. There's a certain feeling that Thunderbolts is a little bit of an afterthought, like it's the last bit of business before we get back on track. At the very least, I would have been more intrigued with the movie had most of the cast's name not already appeared on the back of director's chairs in the Doomsday cast announcement video that took that whole day to reveal. Now, I may also sound like an old gray chin shaking his fist at the clouds, but I can also imagine seeing a post-credit scene in a different timeline where I didn't know the next 3 or 4 movies that were coming out and losing my goddamn mind about what it was revealing. And of course, it's naive to expect that, and I for sure don't, but it's a factor in how we watch a movie like the Thunderbolts, one that's sitting right here on the precipice of the thing we've been looking forward to for so long.
Bucky, you have the wrong people. We have all done bad things.
Yelena, who's carrying this movie, has always been a little anti-Marvel, going back to the way that she made fun of her sister for being a poser. She's just the tiniest bit meta, what makes her great. So it's fitting that at one point in Thunderbolts, she actually asks, what's the point? And this is a movie that is low-key wondering, is the MCU too big for a whole movie dedicated to a collection of side characters like the Thunderbolts? And the answer they come up with is, actually, yeah. They are alone. They are side characters that have to stick up for each other, and they are not the Avengers. Even though the climax, which we've seen in the trailers, takes place in and around Avengers Tower. Even though a lot of the visuals of that action sequence are pretty clearly meant to evoke the Battle of New York. And even though it references the 2012 Avengers film's production codename, which was Group Hug, this team is not the Avengers. Not yet, at least. And even with bigger MCU events on the horizon, just kind of hope we don't hold that against them.
We all have things that we regret.
But I have so many.
Thunderbolts is the most solid the Sacred Timeline has felt in a little while, providing an adventure befitting of its overlooked title characters. And while it very capably dabbles in a darker tone, touching on the mental health of heroes and villains alike, the filmmakers struggle to balance that dabbling with a snappy comedic energy. While the movie as a whole left me feeling like it was kind of a downer on the balance, it's at least the good kind of downer, filled with characters that I am looking forward to seeing again.
That's not good.
Well, there you go. That is my review of Thunderbolts. It was good. Better than okay. Not quite great, but real good. Let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. And for more Thunderbolts, more Marvel, more scribbling notes in the dark that you can't read later, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.